Okay, I'm gonna do that one. So all the sessions are recorded. So I'll be also recording this one, and I'll be sharing that one. Okay, on LMS. Thanks. Okay, so when we talked about sharing, so one of the critical perspectives is the contents, right? So how marketers share the information through the contents, right? So when we say contents is images or videos or any kind of, let's say, discussion relevant with the product, or even the ingredients of the products, or the usability of the products, or the features of the product, all right? Or maybe pricing. And the way they're using these to maybe encourage the target audiences or motivate them or persuade them, right? So content marketing strategy is one of the essential strategies that the social marketers need to embed, right? So how to dimensionalize it, how to define it. So it's a kind of, let's say, strategy or a process of creating and amplifying content for the purpose of informing the target audiences or sometimes entertaining, right? So if you look into different kinds of appeal, we can incorporate, can be fun, can be joy, or it can be humor, right? Or sometimes can be guilt as well. If you look into some of the social, let's say, marketing, you guys are familiar with the difference between social marketing and social media marketing, right? Social marketing is changing the negative behavior. So if you look into that, social marketing, they are using different kinds of marketing strategy to change negative behavior. Think about obesity problem, think about drink driving, or think about tobacco related problem or type 2 diabetics, right? So they use guilt appeal. And that kind of appeal literally help the target audiences to change their behavior, right? So, or maybe they use fear appeal as well. So the way we use this content, right, not only to inform or persuade or motivate, sometimes maybe entertain, all right, so that we can maybe create the awareness of the brand or the product or the name of the company, right? And then so that we can remain on their mind for some time. So that means whether we have to enhance the share of mind and also share of voice, right? So that's why if you look into the content marketing, it's not only scattered strategy, is a kind of continuous process. So that means you create the content, then you move forward with that whether it works well or not, and then you can actually adapt it, right? So this is the kind of three major components that we need to look into. You create or you design the components, right? Looking into different, let's say, attributes of your product or brand, you might consider to use, let's say, images, or you might also consider to use maybe videos as well, right? It's a kind of video explainer, right? How to use the product or use the brand, or maybe how to solve different kinds of service related problem. And then you pass it, you deliver it, use different kinds of media, social media platform. You might use videos, if it's an extended videos, you can use YouTube. You're using, let's say, Facebook or Twitter, you can again use video, but you're not actually using the extended one because you need to actually find out the kind of effective approach to reach to the target, right? So in that case, it might be small videos or clips or maybe images. And then after the dissemination to the target audiences based on the persona, you also do measure how effectively you use these contents so that it reach to the target audiences, so that they are maybe changing their opinion towards your brand, or maybe they are actually getting the information that you are using as in your objectives, or maybe they are purchasing more your brand, right? These are the three different core components that we normally use, both for conventional and also for social media content marketing, right? There's a very interesting paper if you want to look into, right? So it literally talks about the kind of digital content marketing, focusing on social media perspective, the kind of advantages we can get out of it, right? So it also talks about the differences between the conventional media or traditional media and the online media. You look into the online medias, these are giving some kind of additional advantages comparing to the online one, right? So it's more affordable, right? Let's say the online media is comparing, it's more time consuming, right? The communication goes with a push. That is a kind of problem, but the social media is more about the pull, right? The way we also look into the kind of other kinds of advantages is maybe SEOs, right? So online contents can literally help you to, let's say, enhance your SEOs, right? So it's a kind of natural backlinks, okay? You also help you to, let's say, create a kind of authenticity. Who is sharing the contents from whom? Think about Red Bull, right? So if you look into the kind of contents that have been shared in Red Bull social medias, they have different ways, unique ways to share the contents, different kinds of sports activities or different kinds of sponsorship of different programs. Those are literally hold a kind of, let's say, genuine and a kind of social engagement approach of authenticity, all right? Or maybe authority as well. So you are sharing the content, you know that what you are sharing to your target audiences and how that literally help your brand, right? In different ways you can look into the kind of let's say time, resources, or maybe let's say target audiences, or even interactive with your target audiences with the content. So in that case, online contents actually literally benefits, right? Now, when we look into online and social media content marketing, we have to go with a kind of, let's say, process, as I've indicated to you earlier, right? So it's a kind of process. And in that process, we have a step-by-step process that we need to actually look into, right? So a step-by-step process. So in that process, you have content market planning. That's the first step. Then you have idea generation. So first you need to actually design the plan. Then you need to actually think about what kind of contents you'll be using. Then you need to work on content mapping, right? So in content mapping, you need to sit down and you need to decide which one you will be sharing with your target audiences and which one is not. And then you create the content and you develop it, and then you start posting it in different media platform. And then you try to measure it, that whether the whole contents that you are using are, let's say, benefiting your campaign or not, right? In different ways we can measure it. Let's say Google Analytics we can use to measure it. And then after that, when you do measure, you find the outcome, and then you actually get the insight from here. That is a debrief. Okay, in different ways we look into how we can use the content marketing process, right? Now let's look into starting with the planning. What we normally do in the planning stage, right? So we normally deal with designing a goal. So why we are using this particular content, which is relevant, maybe relevant with our campaign, right? So we have to deal with the goal. We have to work with our buyer persona. That means we have to deal with the segments. We also need to deal with our budget or resources. And then we also need to deal with the timing or scheduling, right? So if it is goal, there can be various different kinds of goals, all right? So the goals can be, let's say, creating the awareness. That can be one of the goals for your brand, right? Awareness of your brand or service or an event, right? Or it can be entertaining your, let's say, target audiences or consumers, or maybe informing or educating them. That can be another kind of goal. It can also, let's say, try to increase the traffic in your website, right? So that can be another goal also. Or maybe you can also use this one, all the contents for a PR activities, right? Public relations activities. So that can be also a kind of goal. But remember, when we say goals for content marketing, it should be also using the SMART goals, right? Or a SMART objective. We are familiar with that. When we say SMART is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. All right. So how we are actually looking into all these different, let's say, posts that we are dealing with our contents in different social media platform, whether we can, let's say, focus on, let's say, simple or significant. All right. So when you do talk about a specific, whether we are using this content as a kind of measurable is that how many people have watched it and whether it's actually motivating them, how many people retweet it, whether it's engaging them, right? Whether it is achievable, that means whether we can literally make them or let's say persuade them so that they have changed their opinion. whether it is relevant, right? So think about it's realistic. We are sharing the contents, but it actually goes with our product or brand, let's say, resonance objectives, right? And also whether it's time bound or not. So literally we have to deal with all these, right? So when we are actually dealing with the objectives of the content marketing. After that, when we have the clear objective, then we need to deal with designing the persona, right? So when we say persona, that means you are segmenting the target audiences, and that literally help us to create a let's say complete picture. In that picture, we can see the breakdown, right, of all different consumers, their interest, or their online behavior, or maybe their key demographic, right, based on the relevant brand. So that's why we have to deal with the persona. We can categorize different kinds of personas, right? So we talked about that in the earlier session. When we are designing with the persona, we also need to look into persona. Designing the persona also benefits to design the content, right? Because we understand the features of each of these different, let's say, target audiences. And based on that, we can also design or redesign, let's say, the changing the color or changing the description. If it is, let's say, literate target audiences, if it is illiterate target audiences, we actually need to do adjustment with the, let's say, verbatim, or also, let's say, the pictorial representation, right? So that's where we have to deal with designing the persona or defining the persona, right? So after we actually look into when we are dealing with the designing the persona, we also need to focusing on understanding the kind of, let's say, competitors, what they are doing. That is another critical perspective that we need to look into. Sometimes when we are getting the, let's say, ideas from, let's say, our competitors, we can also, that means the post, think about Samsung and let's say Oppo, two different, let's say, smartphone brand, and they are using their own social media platform. How Oppo is actually observing Samsung's strategy in their social media platform, right? Or what kind of contents they are offering or they are posting, and they can actually get the insight from them. And this is the way we can also get the idea, right, from them. In that regard, we can look into the idea generation in different ways, right? So if you look into getting the idea from the target audiences, all right, then maybe the competitors as well, as I've indicated to you, or maybe you are running a survey, and in your social media platform, that particular survey can literally help to collect a lot of information about what kind of content you'll be using, right? Or maybe you can rely on different kinds of data sources, maybe the CRM data sources. You can also use it in different ways. You can collect information regarding the idea generation of your content. We also need to look into the viral content as well, right? So in different ways, when we do talk about the kind of strategies, right? The strategies we are using. If you look into this way, the strategies you are using, we are also looking into different perspective, right? So the perspectives like the viral content, all right? So this is where you are using the information to the target audiences, and that literally grabs a lot of attention in a sense that think about this one. One way or other, we talked about different kinds of behavior in online, right? So think about online communities. So last session, we talked about the content creators, but the majorities are the lurkers, right? So what the lurkers normally do, they do actually skim through, but they also sometimes do share as well. So if you are using, let's say, a particular kind of ideas or building a particular kinds of ideas, and they try to rely on the lurkers, whether they are sharing it or not, that kind of information can literally help you to understand whether you will be using the content from that particular, let's say, viral or the buzz of the social media platform, right? Different kinds of theories also is relevant when we do talk about the viral or buzz marketing, even in social media platform, right? Different kinds of theories. One of the popular researchers here is Jonah Berger. So Jonah Berger is from Penn State University, Pennsylvania State University, right? So he was in Wharton before. Jonah Berger, his publication, he's very famous on contagion, right? So his area is on contagion. That means how information moves in social media platform, right? So he has indicated a very interesting angle of steps theory, all right? So if you look into the steps theory, that shows that how or steps model, that how the information actually becomes viral, or his viewpoint of contagious, right? So how information actually spread in social media platform, right? These are the stages, or if you look into these, right? Social currency, trigger, emotion, public, practical, value, story. All right, each of these. So this is 10 with steps. S, T, E, P, P, S steps, right? So let's have a look into how we see these steps model literally work in a social media platform with the contents, right? So when we look into the first one is the social currency, right? So how the social media contents also use as a kind of social currency, right? So just think about the question, right? Whether the content of your buyer persona is sharing the same the information to feel the, let's say think about the kind of knowledge that you are trying to induce to them. Let's say whether they are looking into this information and they are thinking about, okay, that is the information for them. All right, so that means you are using a kind of information which talks about caring or well-being of the customers, right? And they're feeling a kind of, let's say, connection with that information, right? So whether feeling knowledgeable or witty or caring or cool, all these sort of critical perspectives are used as a kind of social currency with the contents, right? Whether the contents actually trigger, right, something that actually connects with your target audiences to the story, because it can also carry a kind of a strong story, right? So how it resonates with your buyer persona. If you look into other different angle, maybe how well the persona remember your content, right? So they looked into that, and in their, let's say, later time or subconscious mind, they are distilling the information. And when in future they wanted to buy something, that information, that particular information from their memory comes back, right? We normally use this HAM, human associative memory model, right? If you guys are interested, you can also look into that HAM model. Human associative memory model, right? So why it triggers? Because the way marketers designing the contents and his information remains as an interconnected node, right? So different ways, if you look into, as an example, think about Red Bull as a classic example, the way they are using all different kinds of attributes, right? And if you look into the differences between other different soft drinks, energy drinks brand with Red Bull is more expanded using, let's say, all different kinds of connotated meaning of the brand, right? So not only the caffeine and taurine, but what else? Okay, so sponsoring different kinds of sports, right? Sponsoring different kinds of music festivals, right? All these are some or other interconnected, connoted meaning. And this is the way they are remaining on the mind of the consumers. And when the consumers look into the brand, they know that their knowledge about the brand is more, let's say, extended comparing to the brand they are not buying or they are not, let's say, aware of, right? So that's where it actually works as a kind of trigger. What makes the content remarkable or memorable? All right, so that is the critical perspective that we need to look into, right? Whether it's a kind of song or slogan, you can also, or maybe a kind of hashtag, you can also use to look into that, all right? And after that, we need to look into E stands for emotion, right? So whether it's actually using a kind of emotional appeal, what kind of emotional appeal we could actually look into, right? Different kinds of it can be fun, can be joy, or can be humor appeal, right? Remember, it should be relevant with the kind of positioning approach that we are using in the actual positioning, right? So if our brand comes with lots of, let's say, humor appeal, we can use it. Think about Doritos. You guys are familiar with Doritos chips, let's say, advertisement. They are constantly using humor appeal, right? And then you look into their social media platform, the kind of post, the contents they are actually using is, again, the similar tone, the humor appeal they are using, right? Let's say in a different angle, some brands, they are using, let's say, guilt appeal, as I was indicating, the social media strategy by the non-profit organization, or maybe, let's say, changing the negative behavior, let's say TAC, right? So reckless behavior on road, how to change it using fear appeal or guilt appeal, right? So different ways you can look into. It should be consistent with the kind of positioning approach. And also need to deal with public as well, right? So the first P stands for public. So information that is publicly available, right? So that's the way we need to actually look into. So normally, if you are using different kinds of contents, right? So you try to create, let's say, different kinds of buttons, sharing buttons, right? So even if it's in your website, you are using the sharing button so that let's say, the target audiences are using those buttons to goes to next social media platform, maybe from, let's say, your Facebook, you are redirecting them to YouTube, or maybe from your website, you are redirecting them to different social media platforms. So the way you are letting the public to access to that, all right? So that's way to look into how we are using the content. Practical value, the second P, right? If you look into the content, whether it comes with any kind of practical value, right? So think about whether the kind of information you are using educates the target audiences, or a kind of practical advice, or offering a kind of guidance on an issue, right? So let's say they are experiencing a problem on assemble the product, or maybe let's say when they buy the product, they had a problem. As a classic example of is Coles, right? So one of the customers purchased something, was not happy, post into the let's say, the social media platform, and they quickly replied to how to literally use that particular product with the right ingredients to make the proper soup, right? So the way we are using the contents also comes with the practical value. And the last one is S stands for story, right? So whether the contents comes with, let's say, kind of interconnected story. Normally we do design the storyboard, right? To actually create a comprehensive insight that how the brand carries the meaning. But the brand carries the meaning also connected with the contents. That contents also can connect or carry the similar tone or the meaning as well, all right? So whether it's communicating with underlying marketing message. So that's the way we need to look into that, right? So these are the way we see the steps model are very important, right? So I would say that put a star marks into that slide. After that, we need to, any question, guys, so far? Any question? No question? All right, good, thank you. Okay, moving ahead. After that, we need to deal with the content mapping. All right, so content mapping is the kind of, let's say, or maybe you are considering what to present, right, based on the current story, because you have different, let's say, contents or storyboarding, right? So you are actually putting all these information together, and you try to, let's say, create a kind of story with that, right? Normally, in the content mapping, you are trying to, let's say, look into a kind of connection with the buyer persona's expectation from you, right? And that particular information that you are embedding into the story, right? Whether that some or other persuade or motivate or convince the target audiences, right? So if their let's say expectation from the story and their let's say, existing need are equal, then they will be eventually motivated. So that's why we have to create a kind of consistent mapping. Think about HP, right? Hewlett Packard brand, we know that. So they are selling the portable computer devices, right? So if they are targeting to a particular segment, the segment is school children, right? So how the school children can use the portable devices, and that can benefit them in their, let's say, exams or attempting different assessment or learning process, right? So interesting thing is that if they are using all this as a kind of, let's say, storyboarding and using these as a kind of comprehensive motivational approach in their social media platform, that can benefit them, right? Or let's another way of looking into is another brand, Aero Mexico, right? As a classic example, actually, Aero Mexico, how they have use the DNA, right? So approach. You guys are familiar with that Aero Mexico DNA campaign? Has anyone seen that Aero Mexico DNA campaign?
No.
Okay. What they did, this is very interesting. What they did, they actually promoted the campaign that in southern part of America, in California, what they actually looked into, people who are more Mexican would get more discount. Aero Mexico is an airlines company, all right? And they say that, okay, they looked into the census data, and based on the census data, they looked into the family tree or family history, right? The historical data they looked into, and they find out based on the DNA, what is the percentage of, let's say, Mexican they are. So the people who are, let's say, have more percentage of in their DNA, they are Mexican, they are getting more discount. It's a kind of humor thing, but this literally work, right? So eventually, this comes with the story that their connection with the Mexico. So they have run this whole campaign in their social media platform, and it literally create a big buzz, but at the same time, people start talking about it, the share of voice goes up, and eventually the sales goes up as well. All right. After the content mapping, we also need to look into content creation and development, right? Different kinds of content creation we can look into. If you are actually looking into the kind of content creation, we can look from here. You can see the blog post, all right, or maybe infographics as well, right? So different kinds of, now we actually can see different kinds of programs are actually coming out, which literally help to design the contents, right? Different kinds of AI programs are, right? So you can look into, you can create different kinds of social media blogs, posts, right? Or if you look into other different kinds of programs like Canva. You guys are familiar with Canva, right? So how Canva is literally expanding the market share, the Australian company Canva. Jack, yep. Michael?
Yeah,
Michael.
they're really good.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, they're really good to use when you're doing like infographics for like students or even like uni assignments.
True. You know that what's the
I agree.
value, Michael?
Yeah, I was just going to say I use it for work. Okay.
You know the valuation of the company? What is the actual valuation of the company? What is the company? The Australian entrepreneur, she has started her journey with this particular company, but now what is the actual value of the company? Could you please do a Google? Just for a fun.
It'd be in the billions, wouldn't it?
Definitely billions, but what is the actual figure? You'll be it's astonishing. Just do a quick Google. That
55 billion. There you
exactly go. More than the Twitter, right? More than Twitter. So think about this, massive growth. If you look into, right, there's a massive growth for the last 5 years. A particular Australian company is showing, and there's other post also talks about the kind of overvaluation, maybe a kind of issue, but I don't actually agree on that. I can see that there's a kind of growth, and also the way they are expanding the market share. Now they are moving to other different geographical markets though. Anyway, we can look into different kinds of programs being used by the social media marketers to design their contents, right? And these are some of these, right? Not limited to. If you look into, let's say, the photographs or images, right? So we can see different kinds of photographs or images. Let's look into how this kind of content's been been very, very useful. Each of these, right? So think about if it is a blog post, right? So what we not normally need to look into the blog post, right? So it can also incorporate images, even in the blog post, in images or maybe videos or maybe sometime infographics, right? We can incorporate that. Different kinds of AI programs also been used now. AI content making programs, right? Jasper is one of those getting popular, right? Other kinds of AI programs also literally help to create plagiarism-free the contents, right? That is very interesting to look into. Photographs, all right? How we also look into using the professional photographers to take the photos, but now the smartphones or the phones becomes let's say comes with good cameras, right? So this can be used to take the snap and use those in, let's say, pictures as a kind of content, image contents or photographs contents, right? But remember that when we are using the photographs, one of the important perspective is the licensing, right? So whether we actually look into if it is a person, we are taking the photographs of the particular person, whether it's a kind of, let's say, a disclosure there or not. So if we are using a creative license or Creative Commons license, that's okay, all right? If it's not, then is a kind of problem, right? We also can look into different kinds of online videos, right? So videos become really popular as a kind of contents, right? If you look into different social medias, getting its presence, particularly focusing on online video. So we can even in online video we can look into let's say different social media platform like YouTube, all right, or other, let's say, Vimeo. They are used by different kinds of marketers because these are widely shared as well, all right. Normally in videos we can also look into interviews or vlogs or guides, or maybe the product description is being used as a kind of contents. But when we look into videos or to create the videos as a kind of online content, we also need to focus on maybe the using the right tools, right? So whether it is a good camera or a HD camera, or whether we are using a kind of tripod so that we can stabilize the video, all right? Or let's say whether we have the appropriate lighting, or maybe we're using the right video editing software, right? So all these needs to be considered. As I was indicating earlier, the length of the video, right? So that's also a very critical point to consider. So if it is a social media platform, so how big the video can be if it's an online video, right? Different ways to look into it. If it's on YouTube, then maybe 20 minutes or so. As a long video, short video can be 3 to 4 minutes, right? But for other different platforms, let's say in Facebook, we need to actually make it, let's say, as small but vivid that can be maybe 1 or 2 minutes, right? So the way we actually look into that. Other ways of looking into, if you see that, not limited to this content, other ways of looking into email as a kind of, or EDM as a kind of contents that can be also used by the social media marketers. After we do design the contents, then we need to deal with the implementation, right? Implementation is critical, the way we look into implementing it through different channels, right? So if you look into maybe using Facebook, or maybe using Instagram or Twitter, or maybe using, let's say, YouTube, right? Using these different, let's say, platforms and also the contents needs a kind of scheduling, right? Scheduling is also very, very essential perspective. Think about if you're using the content for a particular objective and you're using Facebook, right? So the objective could be raising the awareness for a new flower shop. That's the one you are actually promoting, right? And you can run with the contents, you can run a campaign on Facebook to promote a boutique giveaway for the Mother's Day, right? And for that, you can run, let's say, kind of small competition and using these contents, let's say pictures of the, let's say flower bouquet, only for the Mother's Day purposes, right? And that this is the way you can create the kind of engagement, all right? Now, implementation as based on the schedule is very, very essential to consider, right? So how you are focusing on the time and how you are actually posting on that, all right? After that, we also need to look into when you start posting or delivering the information or disseminating the information, then you need to actually find out how you are measuring it. All right. So measuring is the critical perspective to look into. Different ways we actually can measure. Maybe the primary sales metrics we can measure, or we can measure the secondary sales metrics. But first, we have to look into when we do measure what we are measuring. We are measuring, let's say, the return on investment. That means we are using our fund. All right. So all the different kinds of contents we are designing goes with a kind of budget, right? And we need to find out different things. We need to find out the volume, right? So let's say how many we actually put into our social media platform, and how many posts we are doing with the contents, right? So we also need to deal with the reach. Reach means that how many people have seen the post, right? So we need to also measure that. We also need to measure the engagement as well. That means how many people are participating in the conversation, right? For the post or for the brand, and what they are doing to spread the information or the content that we have posted. That means whether they are engaged or not. Think about the Twitter's retweets, right? Or let's say Facebook share, or let's say the way YouTube, we looked into sharing that thing in WhatsApp, right? So different ways we looked into engagement. That can be also look into a kind of measuring factor, right? We also need to look into sharing the voice, right? So how many people start talking about it? We can also measure that. So in the primary sales metrics, we can look into using Google Analytics. We can use it to find out let's say the measurement of all these, right? So think about the sharing, the posting, or engaging, all right, or share of voice. We can measure it. Also, the secondary one is, this is not widely used, but is also applicable. We are using this one through the touch points, right? So we can measure on the consumer, let's say, touch point. We talked about the journey, consumer experience journey. Each of these journey, we have different touch points, right? So in social media, we can also look into a touch point when they are exposed to. For that, we cannot actually use any kind of, let's say, program or platform like Google Analytics, but we have to use in-depth interviews or focus group, just manually need to get the data, manually collect the data. After that, when we are using, let's say, all these different kinds of measurement techniques or approaches, right? So different kinds of measurement techniques and approaches that we are using, we build our insight, all right? And after we build the insight, what we normally do, we actually get the knowledge out from here, and we share this information for future campaign, future project, right? So this is the way we actually move forward. That is the debrief. Okay. Now you look into, this is the summary. This is the stages. We do actually cover content market planning, idea generation, content mapping, content creation and development, implementation and delivery, campaign evaluation and debrief. All these stages needs to be covered as a kind of process to make your content strategy as successful, right? Any question, guys? Any question? Michael, Jack, any question?
No, all good from me.
No, nothing so far. I am making note of these as I head into designing the campaigns for the social media marketing plans. This is all coming in very handy.
Good, good, thank you. All right, now let me share the assessment details. Okay. Okay, here you go. Can you see the LMS page, guys?
Yeah, we can see it.
Good, good. All right, so this is pretty much a structure, right? So of the social media marketing plan, right? So this will be connected with your assignment 1. Okay, so if you look into that, what we are supposed to do in this assignment, right? Have a look into step by step, right? So I'll not go with this executive summary because you guys are already familiar with that, what we need to write in the executive summary, right? So there's a difference between summary and executive summary. So what kind of insight we can get by looking into the executive summary or takeaway points, right? So that is how we're going to write that. In the introduction part, you need to actually introduce the organization and the result of the social media audit, that the audit you did in your first assignment. This is where you actually need to, it can be a key points, right? In dot points you can mention, right? And then you need to give a kind of, let's say, journey. You know that the introductory part, you actually give us a roadmap that how we are moving forward, right? Situation analysis, okay? What is the internal perspective, the SWOT? So what is the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat? How you see that one relevant with your social media decision? Micro and macro perspective, very important, right? So what kind of strategies you think you can consider based on adaptation of the macro environmental, let's say, influence on your social media decision, right? You need to look into that. Similar like that, also in micro environmental perspective, think about your employees or your staff, all right? So think about the suppliers, think about the consumers, how you are actually liaising with all these different stakeholders on that. What's the objectives and what's the goals, right? So think about the way we are dealing with the kind of objectives and goals, right? Maybe 1 or 2 or maybe 3 different objectives, social media objectives you can consider, and how you are using that, right? Different ways we are considering different kinds of, let's say, goals. What's your goals, right? So what kind of goals you are dealing or maybe considering with awareness, all right? Or maybe expanding the brand knowledge, all right? Or maybe, let's say, increasing the traffic in your website. What kind of goal? Or maybe educate your target audiences, what kind of goal you'll be considering. Remember, we talked about the SMART goals, right? So try to embed the SMART goal, right? So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So whether you are actually putting all these into the matrix, right? So that is what you can do in here. Then STP, segmentation, targeting, positioning. So we have to build the personas, right? We talked about it in session 2, right? So different kinds of consumer or customer personas, how you're looking into different factors, maybe demographic, maybe psychographic factors you are using to build that. So after that, how you are targeting them, differentiation or more personalization approach you're using in social media strategy, okay? And then the positioning approach. So when you are using the positioning approach, you need to be coming up with a couple of important things, right? So you need to use your, let's say, platforms to justify your strategy. Comparing to your competitors, their strategies, what is your online value proposition? Think about the kind of information you are using is connected with your actual core positioning, and why this information that you are using as a kind of positioning approach is different. So you need to use that one, right? So you need to also deal with, let's say, objectives and also the target market description, okay? Maybe 2 or 3 core platforms you can use the posting, let's say, positioning approach for that particular perspective. You also need to use the Kitman's paper of functional building blocks. So read the paper and then need to use that particular framework here. You also incorporate the social media campaign strategy, all right, comparing with the traditional marketing efforts by the brand. So you need to go to that particular selected brand that you are working on, and then you need to bring that insight from there to here, okay? You need to define the campaign theme and how to integrate the traditional channels, okay? At least 2 campaigns are required. Now, if you look into, it can be different kinds of, let's say, campaign, theme, platform, duration, the key message, the goal of your social media campaign, right? Objectives, engagement, content strategy, all right? So remember that at least 2 campaigns you are going to design here, okay? One can be educating the consumers, one can be, let's say, creating the awareness, okay? So either way you can look into that. Then what is your activation plan? All right, so based on, let's say, scheduling, we are talking about today as well, the scheduling, how you're scheduling based on the, let's say, time frame. It can be a Gantt chart you can show on that particular posting, right? And also monitoring the performance, how you're measuring the performance on that. All right, so in different ways you looked into it, you can actually use different kinds of approaches, maybe Google Analytics as a kind of recommendations to show that how you'll be able to measure that, okay? Or maybe whether you will be actually measure the sentiments as well, okay? Remember we talked about that one in the last session, or maybe you're using ethnography as well, which one you are preferring to use. And then conclusion, and then references. Some examples been provided if you looking into that, so that you get some insight from here, okay? Some example from, this is the example, I think that was by Winnie, our ex-student on social media strategy the last year, I think. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so there are some 2 other examples. If you are writing, you could actually get that insight from here. Any question? Any question on assignment? Jen, you have any question for assignment?
Not for now. I'm still working on it. It's just about the due date, because we assume that the feedback, we would need the feedback on the assignment 1 to.
Yes, we'll be pushing that one. I think I can push this one more week. So let's make it in week 10. Okay.
That would be great.
Yeah, I will, because I will be able to give you the feedback by this Saturday, or let's say, and then you'll have 2 more weeks then. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, Jen. Okay, I will update the date. No problem. Of the submission date. Jack, you were supposed to ask me any question, I think.
Oh yeah. I'm not sure if this was mentioned earlier, but is it okay to use Harvard as a referencing system,
Yeah.
or do you prefer APA?
Harvard is fine. Harvard is
Okay.
absolutely fine. Yeah. If you're comfortable in APA, I don't have any issue. But normally in our business school, La Trobe Business School, they have a consistency of using Harvard.
Okay, fabulous. I'm more comfortable with Harvard, so that works great.
That's the
Thank
easiest
you.
one. Harvard is the most easiest one.
Yeah, it's the most logically
Actually, right?
mapped out. Yeah, I find it a lot easier. I had to use Oxford for an assignment a couple of weeks ago, and that was
Have you used the Chicago? Have you used the Chicago one?
I haven't used Chicago, no.
Yeah.
But I've seen it listed there, and I've always wondered what that's about.
No, I like Harvard, but I had submitted a paper that was in Journal of Consumption, Market and Culture. That was the most, I don't know what kind of approach they have used. It's not APA, not Harvard, not Chicago. It's a combination. And they said that they're picky.
Yeah, maybe they kind of made their own.
Yeah, I don't know. But I actually use my own referencing program, right? So I use EndNote. So in that case, it's a kind of problem. It's manual. It's more manual. Yeah. Anyway, yes, use Harvard. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
No problem. Any other question, guys? Anyone? Before we move to the question and answer.
I do have one.
Yes, please. Go.
Do we have to choose the same company that we chose for assignment 1 or?
Yeah. If you want to change, in that case, you need to send an email. I have to make a note that you have
All
changed.
right.
Because if I'm marking and then I looked into the company's change, then there might be some penalty. So you need to provide the reason why you think that you want to change it. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right. So we will be working on this one. Sorry. Okay. Now this is relevant with the today's discussion, right? Can you see the discussion questions, right, guys? Samsung uses social media in a very vast area. Is more engaging with their contents post and also commenting and replying back to the consumers or customers, which creates a good relationship with the clients and also creates trust to the brand. So we need to visit 3 of their social media platform and then need to answer these 3 questions, right? Question 1 for Samsung, is it better to pitch to the specific or to a broad target audience? Why? Okay. The second one, what is content mapping and why content mapping is important for Samsung in social media marketing? And the third one, how would Samsung evaluate social media campaign using examples of goals, measurement metrics, tools that may literally employed for the purpose? Okay. So these are the 3 questions, right? So what we can do, I'm not going to create how many we have. Okay, let me see, 5, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. So Michael, Mohit, Preeti, and Jack. So you guys can discuss and we can write down the answer here. Okay. In Padlet.
Sorry, Professor, just a quick question.
Yes.
My laptop crashed, so I couldn't hear the last part. Did you just extend the time of submission?
Yes, week 10.
Okay, so, and will it be Friday or Sunday of that week?
I will do it Sunday. Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So 1 more week on Sunday.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem. Now, Mohit, we are answering the 3 questions, all right?
Yeah.
You can liaise with each other and then we can look into their website. This will be quick because there's no case study to read, right? We have to look into, skim through their website and look into their contents, recent posts, and then we need to answer the 3 questions, right? Can we start?
No worries. I'm
Yeah.
just on the phone, so it might be hard for me, but I will definitely read the case study and everything and let the discussion begin.
There's no case study, actually. There's
Okay.
description on Samsung. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, let's start. Are you good, Michael, Jack, and Preeti?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. Yeah, let's start.
Hi guys, for the first part, are we ready to discuss?
Yeah, I have some thoughts on it. Anyone else?
I'm still going through it, just 2 more minutes.
How you're progressing, guys?
Yeah, I'm going through all the questions at the moment.
Sure. Or if you want to divide the question, you can also do that.
I've written some answers. Should I pop them onto the Padlet now?
Mhm. Okay, see the answer from Jack. Yep. So you're focusing more on a specific audience. Mhm. Mm. Maybe the time as well, Jack, if you look into when the let's say post a particular content and how effective that one, let's say maybe before the festival, a kind of festival. Time can be also.
Yeah, it's the time element, particularly I guess with specific events.
Mm.
That would be good.
Good work. Thank you.
Thanks.
Preeti, how are you progressing?
Yeah, I'm going through it now, sir.
Good.
Professor might need to go. My laptop is still overheating. I don't know what's wrong with it.
No, it's all good. Be careful with the device. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll see you next week's class. Tomorrow I do have work. I won't be joining your tomorrow's class.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah.
Thanks, Professor. Have a good
Thank
week.
you. You too.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Michael. So yeah, post it. Okay, so you are arguing that they are preaching to the broader audiences, right? Okay.
Yeah, that was the impression I got from looking at their social media. Like they don't typically
Yep.
target a certain demographic. From what I saw, it's very
Yep.
product focused.
Yeah. So you looked into their smartphone or other devices particularly, or let's say general post?
Really just the products that they typically promote on their social media, which I saw a lot of, like phones, tablets, TVs.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Okay. Good. No, that's fine, because in two different ways you can tackle the answer, right? Content mapping. Find that. A kind of storyboard reflects, right? So when you are actually mapping the content, right, interconnected with the actual positioning and also with the persona. Yeah, good. Something. Cells, yeah. Yeah, you can also measure share of voice, share of mind as well, right? So in both different ways, this can actually literally help. Yeah, it's difficult because the product has been sold in different, let's say, channels, right? So that's why measuring whether that literally increase the sales is hard to find. Agreed. Okay, thank you, Michael. Then Preeti. So you're proposing these specific audiences, right? Target audiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Content mapping is. That's interesting that you're focusing on the uni students, their gadgets, laptops, and computers.
To give it like that personal touch, like we all use it, and not to make it like, you know, that fake thing. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Now that's relevant though, actually, if you look into creating a kind of, let's say, connection with the persona. Samsung may evaluate this. Yeah, you can use hashtag to measure the metrics. Yeah, that's true. As I was indicating earlier regarding time, right? So think about, you can also consider that content posting and the time, measuring the success on that, measuring the share of voice, share of mind, right? So these are all different, let's say, key indicators of measurement, right? How to lead and increase sales and achievement goals. Yeah, all good. Thank you. Good work, guys. Thank you very much for joining the session and also the participation. All right, so continue work on your assignment. I will extend the time and put an announcement on LMS. Yeah, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Cynthia.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tavia. See ya.
Thank you, Michael.